Cool. So it looks like most people are here. Which is great. Obviously, we'll get things started now. So hi everyone and welcome. My name is Anthony, recruitment consultant here at Westpoint Cyber Talent. We run these events like this through our LinkedIn group, the Cyber Lounge, on a regular basis. We've welcomed back quite a few of our regulars and guys from before. So obviously I want to thank everyone for attending. And we've got our guest speaker today, who's Meredith Patton of PGI Protection Group International. Meredith will be talking about diverse skills in cybersecurity, the Fatima Next Job in Cyber ad that the UK government ran last year, and what it means to switch to a career in cybersecurity. As you can imagine, this affects the entire industry. And something we should all be aware of. Just before we kick things off, be able to ask questions throughout the event. We've obviously already had a little bit of interaction, so make sure you put them in the Q&A section. We can ask them, I say, either during the event or kind of at the end. It's the fastest way for us to see your questions, to make sure that they don't get lost in the chat. In the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. So I think without further ado, I'll hand you over to yourself, Meredith.
Thanks very much, Anthony, and thank you to everybody for taking the time out of your day to join us today. It's very nice to be here. My company has a great relationship with Westpoint. They've found us some terrific people, even in the 1 year that I've been with PGI. By way of self-introduction, my name is Meredith Patton. I have been with Protection Group International for just over a year now. I joined it from DXC Technology, which at the time had a big infrastructure contract with the UK government. Before that, I worked for many years in the Australian Intelligence and Security Organisation, in particular the Signals Intelligence Agency, which is now known as the Australian Signals Directorate, which I joined back in 2000 as a reporter. So just in terms of today's talk, just to demonstrate that you can come to cybersecurity careers via a number of routes. I started off with a criminal law degree from a Japanese university back in the day. So I never guessed at that time that this is where I'd end up. I thought today I discussed the talk with Anthony and Adam, obviously beforehand, and we decided to do it in the format of a bit of a fireside chat. So Anthony's going to ask me some questions, and I will sort of fold my thoughts on diverse skills in cybersecurity into the answers, if that's okay with everyone.
Perfect. No, obviously that's a great kind of story. Let's say here in your background, obviously Meredith, where you've come from and things. No, fantastic. So yeah, we ready to get going?
Yep, sure thing.
Perfect. Cool. Okay, so what was your reaction to the Fatima ad, and why have you taken the possibly proactive approach, of raising it in the title of your discussion today?
It probably is a little bit provocative because, as most people who remember the ad would remember, there was a bit of a furor around it at the time. I'd like to start off by being very clear that I'm not trying to be tone deaf about careers in the arts or the importance of this sector. I did some stat digging before I joined the talk, and the estimated value of the arts sector to the UK economy in 2019 was around £8 billion, according to one source I found. This is actually about the same as the cybersecurity industry, interestingly, which came in at about £8.3 billion in 2020. Although obviously we ought to acknowledge the really phenomenal growth of the cybersecurity industry, which has grown about 46% since 2017. The reason I did pick the Fatima ad, and what got lost in the noise a bit though, is that I think the concept it was trying to explain, albeit a little bit clumsily, was that cybersecurity needs more people like Fatima because it needs a huge range of skills and experience. There have been a number of blogs written on the ad, and one of them actually by an arts person pointed out that all they had to do was be a little bit positive and say, look, you don't need specific skills to get into cybersecurity. You could bring a range of skills to that sector. Instead, they sort of went with, she just doesn't know it yet, which obviously came across as, rightfully so, as a little bit patronizing to many people. However, the point I'm making here is that changing careers potentially brings a lot of much needed diversity to any sector that you happen to transition to. And I think this is especially true of cybersecurity, which not only has an acknowledged skills deficit, but also quite an acknowledged diversity problem. And if you want more really good reading on the diversity issues in cybersecurity, the National Cybersecurity Centre put out a great report last year around getting more diversity into cybersecurity.
Okay, cool. So what type of skills?
Well, cyber is frequently regarded as a highly technical set of activities and requiring very high-end technical skills. At one level, this is objectively true. About 65% of the skills gap that cyber is currently grappling with is technical, according to another really glamorously titled Cybersecurity Skills in the UK Labour Market 2020 report that I dug up a couple of days ago. And certainly probably well over half the people that I'm responsible for as Managing Director of Cyber at PGI either come from a technical background or are actively engaged in very technical work, or indeed both. There are a range of jobs in cybersecurity where you do need complex, detailed knowledge of how computer networks and computer hardware works, and it'd be pretty disingenuous of me to pretend otherwise. But, and you all knew there was a but coming there, cyber does need more than just technical skills, and it needs these skills even in some of its most technical roles. If you think about security as a service or a product, my experience of working in security, and I've been doing it on and off for about 20 years now, is that it can come with an inherently negative image. A little bit like insurance, really. We buy security services because we feel we have to, not because we want to, because either something bad has happened to us or something bad might happen if we don't buy in security. And in that sort of environment, demonstrating the validity of good security and its benefits, making people want to practice good security skills, it needs a skill set beyond the technical. For example, the people who make key decisions about security in companies or big government organizations nearly always aren't the most technical people in the room. So you need, for a start, you need great communication skills, the ability to explain complex concepts in a really accessible way. You need the interpersonal skills to build rapport quickly with other people. I would add to that good writing skills, the ability to be quite succinct in your explanation about stuff are important, because your key decision makers often don't have very much time to make quite complex decisions around security. And above all, I would say that security demands empathy and the ability to really listen to people and understand what their key worries and priorities are, because the bottom line that as a security specialist, you are frequently in the position of telling people information that they don't really want to hear, but they need to hear, and delivering that information effectively without unduly scaring people or making them worry about stuff they don't need to worry about is quite a specific skill. Cybersecurity is about the way that it's fundamentally about the way that people behave towards technology rather than inherent technical weaknesses, although those are important and need to be rectified. Like absolute technical flaws in networks are critical in terms of providing exploits for hackers, for example. But it takes real ability and experience to get people to see good security as a non-scary positive thing and an enabling thing. So this is kind of why I don't like calling those skills and attributes soft skills. I find that not derogatory, but kind of doesn't really underline how important those skills are and how difficult they can be to acquire. And they're often far more difficult to teach and nurture in people than the acquisition of specific technical knowledge sets like penetration testing or incident response. And finally, because without those sort of soft skills, the most gifted technological people are really going to struggle to have an impact in the sector on the way that people behave.
Brilliant, cool. Okay, so could you expand a bit, on the kind of specific role options, for non-technical cybersecurity candidates?
Yeah, I've probably set myself up there by talking about technical and non-technical roles, but I'd actually hesitate to, Anthony, to categorize any job in cybersecurity as purely technical or non-technical. Even a role with a very high degree of technical knowledge and skill will be enhanced by these so-called soft skills, as I've just mentioned. And on the flip side, as somebody who's worked most of their career, I'm not really very, like, I'm not a technically trained person, but I have spent a lot of my career either working with or managing really technically skilled people in technology-focused roles. And I believe very, very strongly that it's important to have what I call a competent vocabulary in technical concepts. For example, understanding what a penetration tester does and why. You can't really get away anymore with saying, I'm absolutely not technical in any way, shape or form. It's just about sort of having that basic vocabulary and understanding. A good example of that is way back in the day when I was a language translator for my intelligence agency. I worked with this lady who was absolutely adamant about the fact that she didn't do computers. And by that, I mean, she did not touch them. She didn't switch them on. She wrote all her translations out longhand. Mm-hmm. And mine was the unenviable job of typing them up and putting them into reports. And the thing is, her language was excellent, but I honestly don't think you'd hire somebody like that today. You've got that sort of base level of expectation that people will be able to, even more so in these days of remote working, that you can switch on a computer and be sort of a competent user of technology. And that's kind of the level I'm talking about there. So along that spectrum there, in terms of specific roles, which I'm sorry was the question you asked, cybersecurity can offer roles in project management, information assurance consultancy, which is when you help organizations look at their end-to-end policies and systems for protecting assets and data and make those priority calls on what's my level of risk, what do I need to do about managing that risk? And it is about managing it rather than eliminating the risk. Then there's a whole range of client liaison, communications and marketing, like my mate Karis, who's here today with me, and sales. And they're just a few of the options. There is a huge range of roles that people can go into.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. No, perfect. Okay, so but to kind of return to Fatima, surely even those roles might be a bit of a leap, so no pun intended, say for a ballet dancer.
Yeah, boom tish. One of the reasons, well, yeah, Fatima, she kind of caught my imagination really, because I do think there is a tendency, and I see this in myself and a lot of people I work with, that they over focus on defining what they and indeed other people can't or won't do and what isn't relevant to their work, rather than looking at how their skills and experiences might apply in different contexts. So let's go to Fatima, for example. She's a ballet dancer, so I'm imagining, and I can't say for sure, but I'm imagining that she might be creative, she might be adventurous, ambitious, resilient. She's almost certainly going to have a huge work ethic. She's probably going to be able to memorize complex sequences of information, and she's probably going to be quite a keen communicator, even if she's communicating through dance. So as a manager, frankly, I'd be extremely interested in all of those skills, and they're skills that I encourage and try to nurture in the people that I'm responsible for at the moment, whether they're technical or non-technical. Having said that, I can't vouch for the dance moves of anybody I work with at the moment, sadly. Thank you, pandemic, we can't go out dancing at the moment. As another sort of specific anecdotal example of that, when I was a long time ago, and this is, gosh, about 16 or 17 years ago, I was on the graduate hiring team for the Signals Intelligence Agency's graduate program, which is where we take in brand new grads. And I interviewed a girl who was a bit older than the other grads, and she was actually a nurse in the emergency unit of Canberra Hospital. We had some very stock questions to ask these candidates, like, do tell us about a time when you had to juggle conflicting priorities, or give us an example of when you've had to analyze large amounts of information. And of course, typically with a graduate who's just out of university, they'll turn to things like, well, I had loads of exams on and I had to prioritize study for the exams, or I had to work and hold down a part-time job. This girl just gave us a rundown of what a typical night was like in the emergency ward. And we thought, right, there's absolutely nothing we can teach you about juggling priorities and making quick decisions. So she had loads of information to give us and very compelling material. And the short story is that we hired her, and I believe she became a really successful intelligence analyst. And including we trained her up in the technical skills you need to be a good data analyst, and she just was really, really good. So I think based on those sort of stories and my thoughts, there are kind of two issues to unpack. And the first is sort of querying technical aptitude, or indeed any skill or attribute, as something that you either have or you don't. So people, you often hear people say, I'm not technical. Indeed, I think I said it earlier in the talk, but a couple of years ago, my company ran a very successful, quite small scale, but successful skills conversion program. And it was for a large company specifically looking to retrain women into cybersecurity roles. So we selected the people, did aptitude tests and stuff, but and then ran them through this suite of training. And at least a couple of them with no previous technical studies or experience actually retrained to become really successful incident responders and penetration testers. So I'm not saying everybody can or indeed should do this. I think that the point is that looking at your skill set and your experiences in terms of a spectrum of preferences, maybe, instead of sort of innate gifts that you either have or you don't, gives you a much wider range of career options. And in my case, understanding technical detail, yes, certainly it's what I think the Myers-Briggs people who do all the behavioral stuff, is what they call a learned behavior rather than a sort of instinctive or preferred behavior. Sadly, things like financial management, budgeting, and indeed speaking in public all fall along that sort of learned behavior spectrum for me. But the thing is, I have been able to pick them up and do them. Some people would say to a greater or lesser extent, probably lesser in the case of my boss and the financial management stuff, but we are working on that. Mm-hmm. But I can do them after a fashion. And that's the thing, in the same way, I have every confidence that if, and I absolutely stress it's an if Fatima wanted to try a career change, I'm really confident that she could come up with a role in cybersecurity that would suit her. Whereas in stark contrast, and just to contradict myself, I gave up on being a classical violinist about 20 years ago, because when I was a teenager, that was all I wanted to be. And then I realized I simply did not have the sort of performance aptitude or the work ethic, indeed, to become a classical violinist.
Do you still play any violin then, Meredith?
Yeah, I've got an electric violin now. I'm actually doing virtual band at the moment through a very good little free app called BandLab. So we all lay down our tracks, and sort of the drummer who is the technical person in the room mixes them up for us. But yes, playing electric violin is a lot more fun than classical violin, really.
Oh, brilliant. And so there hasn't been any dancing on your Zoom parties then with PGI?
No, sadly no. That's Karis is responsible for the parties. I blame her, frankly. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. So what should the kind of key takeaway be, for people wanting to join the cybersecurity workforce?
I think it's changing so fast that it's difficult to give hard and fast advice. I know that we've had a questioning today on the sort of lack of entry-level roles that are sort of specifically cybersecurity. There was actually, I couldn't find it again. LinkedIn drives me mad sometimes because I find these great articles and then I can't find them. They scroll away, disappear forever. But it was about somebody writing about precisely that and how we need to create more explicitly entry-level roles in cybersecurity. What I would say is that people should look at all roles without self-limiting based on either the type of thing they think they want to do or their previous experience or qualifications. And as an example, we have just advertised and filled a beginner role in bid management. So that means that when we bid for large pieces of work, we need someone to triage those bids, tell the delivery guys what it's about, call a gateway review meeting about what the work's about, and generally sort of drive the process along. So none of that sort of specifically cybersecurity, but the work we're applying for will be cybersecurity related. I would imagine you pick up a great deal of work on a great deal of experience and knowledge quite quickly on a job like that. And although I wasn't in charge of hiring for it, if I had been, I certainly wouldn't have limited myself to people with, specific experience in cybersecurity. I'm much more interested in those soft skills that are really difficult to acquire, like good writing skills, really good organizational skills, the ability to communicate well. If you've got those, then believe me, you can pick up the cybersecurity knowledge. I would say having said that, I will also say that there's plenty of opportunities to pick up that knowledge on the internet, in the open world. So educate yourself. There's a wealth of material available online. Some of it's free. There's some really good YouTube videos on even sort of basic technical training, if that's what you want to get into. And then I would also say, come to events like this and talk to people in the business. Cyber, I did look up the cyber skills gap overall. I think it was about, it differs depending on which study you read, but there are millions and millions of jobs that are needed in cybersecurity right now that we can't fill because we haven't got the right people. So people in the business are going to be only too happy, I would think, and that's why I'm here today, to invest some time in encouraging new people in cybersecurity, regardless of their background. And if you bring a diverse, different type of background to the job, then I think that's going to be better for us in the long run, as well as for you.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And the bid manager role that you've said you've just hired some from there, I guess they're going to pick up a lot of the technical skills from working within the team.
Yeah, I would want them when they get on board. I need them to talk to my pen testers and sort of get them to walk them through the work they do every day, so they understand the type, so they can look at a bid and think, yep, the guys could do that, or no, they can't. That doesn't mean they have to have an in-depth working knowledge of penetration testing. That's not their job. That's the penetration testing team's job. Yeah, it's it's really hard. I think it's hard for people my age to be really compelling in speaking to much younger people who are just starting out in the workforce about what's possible. It's a bit like your parents talking to you and saying, yeah, you can be anything you want to be. My mother used to say that to me when I was 15, and I used to think she was a complete bloody idiot. What are you talking about, Mum? You can't be anything you want to be. But you, to a certain extent, you can be, in terms of exploring choices. Like, you can explore a wide range of choices beyond what you've trained to do. I mean, frankly, there is absolutely zero call in today's workforce that I've found for somebody with a degree in Japanese criminal law who doesn't want to be a Japanese criminal barrister, which I emphatically did not want to be at the time. But obviously there were a lot of jobs requiring Japanese language, for example, or there were a lot of, I did some jobs in teaching. My very first job was working for the Australian War Memorial. They had a huge collection of Japanese documents published during the war that the Japanese army had left behind as they retreated across Papua New Guinea. These were picked up by the Allied forces. And we had the job of translating them and putting them online. So that was my first sort of foray into the Australian civil service. And then I picked up a job with the intelligence agency later along the line. And then I moved into cybersecurity, which is kind of the natural partner of intelligence, because it's two sides of the same coin. It's sort of poacher gamekeeper stuff. But yeah, I've always personally found security far more compelling than intelligence as a career, because in intelligence you kind of have to be successful once, and in security you almost don't know when you've been successful, because people can be exploiting your network and you might not know about it. So, and the thing about cybersecurity is that a lot of the things you can do to protect your network are really simple. They're not sort of massively expensive or technical. They're more about changing your behavior and changing the way you do things. And helping people come to that is an incredibly rewarding sort of career. I know most people who are in security are really quite enthusiastic about it and passionate about it. And that's one of the things about the sector that I find quite exciting.
Brilliant. No, like I say, you're just following your career path, a kind of perfect example, isn't it, really, for this, for a great example, sorry, for obviously the whole chapter. No, perfect, fantastic. Obviously, thank you, Meredith. Really
very much for having me.
Really interesting take obviously on there, and a lot of great insight, I think. Always a lot of great information to consider. I think we've got a few questions that have come through kind of throughout this one here. So I get these there. Obviously, guys, if there's anything else that anyone does want to ask, again, please feel free to get it in the Q&A bit at the bottom there. But the first one here, Meredith, is from Louisa Summers. Louisa, please give me a call back actually after we finish this one here. We missed each other yesterday afternoon. But so during my search for a job in cybersecurity over the past few months, never once was reference made to the requirement of the ISO or IEC 27032 cybersecurity management. What would be the reason for omitting the certification for a cybersecurity management position?
Wow. So thanks for starting me off with a really easy question.
We're just going nice and easy to start.
It was all going so well. I'm going to have to stick my hand up and say I don't know is the answer. I think that my guess would be, my sort of stab at an answer would be that a lot of these certifications that have come on board have done so relatively recently. So for people like me who started, I first moved into a cybersecurity role in about 2006, 2007. And there simply weren't any sort of certifications like that out there much. So I think people are possibly not aware of them. People don't understand the relevance of the degrees, and I think that's part of the challenge you've got as we professionalize cybersecurity and get more certifications. It's a matter of sorting them all out. Even coming into it in the UK, I found it quite a confusing sector because, for example, you can have certifications in penetration testing that are authorized by the National Cybersecurity Centre, but then you can have spin-off, as it were, certifications that are recognized by the NCSC as being equivalent to, say, check team member or check team lead. So I would say it's a combination of ignorance and confusion, but it shouldn't stop people putting those certifications on their resumes and sort of highlighting them at interviews, certainly.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, so got a question from Paul Barker. I hear lots conversationally about hiring aptitude, not technical skills, but when it actually comes to hiring managers and recruiters, the blinkers still seem to be very much on. Engineers only seem to value engineers, and security types only like InfoSec with InfoSec history. Yet the biggest challenge shortcoming is in the ability to communicate and collaborate with the business. So how would you say that we get past this kind of critical roadblock?
It is true, and I think it's particularly true in the technical domain. From the perspective of somebody who helps to run quite a small company, where margins can be quite tight, where you're always making quite critical decisions around people and hiring. There is there's a lot of pressure on to sort of get people on board and get them up to speed and running very quickly. So it can be really challenging for small to medium enterprises. And I think these make up about, not a massive amount, but I did read the stats on this. I think the percentage, they make up about 24% of that 8.3 billion pounds of value that I mentioned at the beginning of the talk is done by SMEs. So it can be hard to hire somebody at a really entry level and then have to bring them up to speed over, say, the course of 6 months. And I speak with feeling because we have had one staff member who we took on recently at a reasonably junior level, trained them up. We just got them to the point where they were really starting to add value and do sort of proper technical work. And then, of course, they decided they want a career change and left. And that can be very hard to sort of soak up the cost of doing that. I think the answer is more sort of internships and apprenticeships. One of the things I'm looking at with my director of training is going into partnership with established apprenticeship providers and looking at the sort of combo of technical training we can provide to people so that we're turning out more people with entry-level technical skills, so basic technical skills, and then you add the layer of sort of penetration testing, application testing on top of that for the technical side. On the other side, I've not heard of InfoSec history as a qualification, and now I feel really keen to go and do a degree in InfoSec history. I'm sure I'd have a lot to study, but I think again, there are some things for which you actually need professional certification, like doing an ISO 27001 audit. You need to have a person on your team who's a lead auditor. That doesn't mean you can't have a junior person on your team who is studying how to do that. So where I would like to get to with my cyber team is to have a proper spectrum of experience and talent, with your experienced people at the top able to mentor and bring along more junior people. But of course, to create those junior level positions, we have to be successful as well in the business.
Well, Paul's just messaged there, sorry, I was saying he meant a long track record in
great.
not
Okay.
an actual qualification.
Yeah.
That might have
Long
been
track record in InfoSec. It's so good.
I might have stumbled across reading that one.
I beg your pardon, Paul. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. People are always hiring for experience because it's easier, and I think it does behove managers to try and make an effort to recruit people in at entry-level positions and create more entry-level positions. Yeah, it was interestingly, it was slightly easier at the big company I worked at before, DXC Technology, where we did create an apprenticeship engineering cohort, and we took 12 people in, and over the course of a year taught them how to do basic engineering, and then brought them on site for on-the-job training. You can do that sort of stuff at scale when you're a really large organization. It is much more difficult when you've only got about 60 employees.
Yeah, it makes it a lot difficult, doesn't it? So, like you say, so the costs obviously from there. But I hope that one sheds a little bit of light on that one, Paul. We've got another question here from Tanvir. I'm an IT technician. I'm seeking a role in cybersecurity. What would be the best course of action, and what positions should I apply for, or kind of could I apply for?
Yep. Again, the junior level positions are really key to that, and I think that's what people are struggling with at the moment, is finding enough of those entry level positions to go into, because a career change sometimes it's not always sort of natural and fluid and easy. It can mean a sort of real decision on your part to stop, retrain, and go into a different career. It can be difficult to do that when you've got established commitments and things going on in your life. Like, for example, if you need to take a pay cut to start at a more junior position, that can be difficult. My advice would be to seek out the entry-level roles where they are. They do exist. And the other thing is that with the skills shortage, as much as it is, it goes back to that issue I was speaking to in the main body of the talk, which is that we're all advertising for these roles and saying, you've got to do this, you've got to be able to do this, you've got to be able to do that. That's what ideal looks like. Most of us will settle for good, because it's a competitive market out there for skills. So if I find somebody with really brilliant aptitude and say 2/3 of the attributes I put on my job application, I'm certainly going to give them an interview. And it's about, in Australia, we have a terribly colloquial expression that was picked up by our current Prime Minister called have a go. So in Australia, if you have a go, and our Prime Minister was famous for saying, if you have a go, you'll get a go. And I think that's quite true in relation to trying out for jobs. Don't limit yourself by thinking, oh, they want somebody with that, and I haven't got it. It's worth chucking in an application and trying it out.
Cool, brilliant. Yeah, let's hope that helps a little bit there, Tanvir. So we've got another question here. See who that one was from. Sorry, actually, from Christian. Sorry, thanks, Christian. So I was as technology owner responsible for PCI DSS, SOC, and partly ISO 27001 audits. Means to prepare the document, prepare and document it, and of course to attend to the audits for hands-on and showing evidence. Now I leave the company after 21 years in different positions and searching for a new challenge. And of course I thought about to search for a job where I can use obviously practical skills and experience. But of course I have nearly no certifications and such things. Of course, to be prepared, I already made the ISO 27001 foundation, and and make me familiar with AWS and Azure Cloud with a focus on security. What do you think, related to your experience, how important are kind of the certifications and courses and things, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I can actually read the question in the chat too.
Sorry,
So I think no, it's fine. It's good to read it up for people who possibly can't see it. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's a bit like me. I don't have formal qualifications in cybersecurity. I'll stick my hand up and say that right now. But I have done things like write the Australian equivalent of the 10 steps to cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. So it's absolutely possible to have an awful lot of hands-on experience and knowledge. As a manager, I'm sort of biased towards the hands-on experience and knowledge, because if you've done work in ISO 27001, if you've done work in a SOC, then I know instantly if you've got experiences you can relate to me, you've got experience that I want to pick up. It's often difficult for people to look at what they've done and think, actually, that's a really good example. I would thoroughly recommend getting a mentor, somebody who's experienced in these type of things, and going over your CV to pick out the really great narratives in your CV about what you've done and what you've experienced. In terms of the absolute importance of certifications, they are getting more important. You do have to have particular qualifications. For example, PCI DSS, which is the standard that we use to put security around credit cards. I have to have somebody on my team who's a qualified assessor for PCI DSS. Otherwise, we can't do PCI DSS work. In the same way, if somebody wants us to do an ISO 27001 audit for them, I have to have somebody who's got the lead auditor qualification. From a company management perspective, we value those certifications because they're kind of like a rubber stamp saying, yeah, this person can do that. But when I'm filling new roles, I'm always looking very much at the sort of experience and skills section to think, what has this person done? Because if you find a really good person, a lot of companies are willing to invest in getting you a certification or training you, getting you up to speed. Again, it's about that skills shortage. So, you will take a really good person and get them their certification if you think they can get that certification quickly. So I'd say, to answer the question a little bit more succinctly, I'd say certificates and courses are important, but they're not the whole story. And as a recruiter, I always try and look very much at the whole story.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. No, brilliant. I hope that helps with that one, obviously, Christian, as well. Okay, so we've got another one here. As a HR person who isn't technical, how do we attract a more diverse range of people to apply for roles if they're likely to be put off by cyber being a technical space?
Yeah, this is something I feel very strongly about. I think it's very much in the way we advertise, the language we use to advertise for jobs. I think I've been speaking about diversity of skills specifically, but I think I gave a talk for you guys early this year, about diversity per se in cybersecurity and what we need to do to attract more diverse people into cybersecurity. They're very much overlapping, interrelated issues. First and foremost, it's about where you advertise. And again, I hate to play the small company card, but it also can be hard to pay attention to getting diverse people in when you've got a limited advertising budget. You've got to you don't have a lot of time and resources to look in different places for the different people are out there. But yeah, it starts with making the jobs accessible to people and wording them in a way where a more diverse range of people think, actually, that could be the job for me. There's been an awful lot of really good work done, and I came into contact with it during the time that I was working on site at GCHQ as a contractor, around things like unconscious bias in job advertising and the way we recruit. GCHQ obviously has very much been a leader of the pack in trying to attract more diverse people into its workforce, and that ranges everything from women to the LGBTQ plus community to people of color, and also obviously people that they tend to classify as neurologically diverse these days. So people who might even be, you know, what's it called? I've met a lot of people at GCHQ who are dyspraxic, who are dyslexic, and these things actually give them a different way of looking at problems. So yeah, but I think fundamentally it starts with the advertising of the roles and with training the people who are hiring to not hire people who are just like you. And that is a really hard thing to do, because we're all programmed to sort of prefer and be more comfortable with people who are more like us. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, I hope that that helps with that one there as well. I know you kind of alluded there to the other webinar that you did before, which I think we have uploaded all of them onto our website. So if anyone wants to have a little look at that one, it's a very interesting talk, that one there as well. So a question here from Graham. Hi Meredith. I help companies with their security, all aspects, and helping them obtain standards like ISO 27001 and PCI DSS. From cradle to grave, and I wonder. And I just wonder if you deal with consultants or part-time workers rather than full-time employees.
I deal with both. PGI has quite a diverse portfolio of work. We do what I would classify as security service delivery, so information assurance consultancy, ISO 27001, PCI DSS. We also do technical cybersecurity services such as penetration testing, incident response. We also do a fair bit of work overseas in respect of what I'd call national capacity building projects. So we have helped foreign governments build their entire cybersecurity curriculum from scratch. And that includes sort of designing the framework, delivering the courses. And obviously, when you're doing projects of that sort of scale, you need consultants. So we also rely on a great number of really talented subcontractors to help us deliver those projects and indeed to deliver overflow work that we find. So when we've got more business than we can comfortably handle with the employees we have, in the first instance, before we understand that before we're absolutely sure we need to hire new people, we'll tend to subcontract that out to other smaller suppliers. And then, of course, if it's a consistent trend, what you're looking to do is bring that work back in-house and hire another full-time employee. I have managed to grow my pen testing team by 2 people in the space of a year, which doesn't sound like a hell of a lot, but it's all about relative scale. So for a team of 3 to go to a team of 5, that's it's quite good. It's making it start to feel like a proper team of people now, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yeah, I got some really good guys in there as well. It's brilliant. And I think
thanks to you guys. Yeah.
Hopefully that helps with that question there. That's great. Perfect. No, I think that's about it for the questions. So if there's anyone got a last minute question, then fire away. But yeah, I think we're about done, Meredith.
Thank you.
But obviously, thank you so much for your time. It's brilliant chatting with you, obviously listening to yourself and delivering this talk today. Thank you to Karis as well, helping us to kind of set everything up, and of course, to all the guys here, the audience, for kind of joining us today and listening.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming, and thanks for all the questions. I frankly wasn't expecting so many, so I hope I managed to give some sort of answer to all of them, but I'm obviously happy to take those topics up in slower time as well. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Brilliant.
No, like I say, no problem at all. Pleasure's all ours. As I kind of mentioned, we do have recordings of all of them, so this will be uploaded kind of to our website and credit links and things. Like I say, if anyone has got any questions that they've thought of afterwards, feel free to kind of message on there, or myself or Meredith. We'll definitely kind of get in touch with you guys. Like I say, that there'll be a link in our cyber lounge in the chat now. So if you're not already on there, please join. We've got kind of over 1,100 kind of cyber enthusiasts and professionals kind of having just discussions, like this today, kind of a real mixture of things. So, great kind of page to follow for any guys there. And I think that's about it for us today. Obviously, everyone enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks again to Meredith. Look forward to hopefully catching up soon. And yeah, everybody take care and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks very much. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks, guys.